How's it going? Charles Botenston here. So, we are going to be doing our first podcast. Charles Botenston from Botenston Properties International, founder of BPI, affectionately known as BPI. So, why? Obviously, this is the first podcast of many, many that are going to be coming into the future. And really, we wanted to make a podcast for a number of reasons for agents because I just feel there's so much information out there. And I'm just going to add to it. I'm just going to add my 2 cents, which is going to make more information. However, why is my information maybe a little bit unique? I feel that my information is a little bit unique for a multitude of reasons. Is that I focus on real estate. However, I actually, no, I'm sorry. It's 50-50. I focus on my lifestyle, which is eating right and doing the right things, and then I apply that in real estate. I feel like there's a lot of people that are in real estate and they're just not doing the right things to be successful. I'm not calling myself successful right now. I will be because I'm taking the steps to be one of the best, if not the best, company for agents to work at. I just understand, as Gary Vaynerchuk talks about, reverse engineering. Reverse engineering what it is at large companies, what they do right and what they do wrong. What they do right at small little startups, places that are mobile friendly, places that are really good at marketing, and places that focus only on marketing, only on online leads, and they don't make any sales calls. They don't reach out to for sale by owners. So I'll tell you a little bit about myself because this is the first podcast, so I'd rather just lay it out there in the beginning, and you could judge it for yourself. So again, Charles Botenston. So I was at Oppenheimer Funds, which is, I should say, a financial services business downtown Manhattan. They're based in, I think they want to call their headquarters Denver. That's really bad because I was there for 2 years. So I was there from '07 ish, '08. Was it '08? No, end of '07 to the beginning of '09. And it was funny because now that I'm thinking about it, that was not that much time. And I was terribly inappropriate for a corporate guy. And I'm not saying that like politically incorrect, but I just was not set up for it. I came in happy. I didn't like small talk. So I'd literally go into a meeting and there would be people there that I've never met. So I'm like, "Oh, hey, how's it going? Blah blah blah." And I would talk, and their questions were, "How's the weather? How's the weekend? What did you do?" And I'm just sitting there and I'm like, wow. I'm like, and I would go in and I would say, "Oh my gosh, I went to my cousin's. It was awesome. They had a great barbecue, blah, blah, blah. It was so good." And then they said, "Yeah, yeah, no, I hung out with my family. Conversation's over." Right there. And I just said, this is not for me. The 9 to 5, the corporate job. There's a lot of people that enter the real estate market in New York City that were actors or playwrights or still actors or still playwrights. And they're perfect for it because it's almost the same thing where you're selling yourself, you're selling your ideas, you are enthusiastic, you're energetic, and everything like that. So for myself, I hated Oppenheimer Funds. After 1 year, I was like, this is not for me. 2008, I can't believe that. Now that I'm thinking, I thought I was there for 2 years. I was only there for a year and a half, if that. Yeah, I started in '07, late '07 to uh, February, around there, January of 2009. That's crazy. I didn't know that. So they announced layoffs at Oppenheimer Funds. Obviously, it's the middle of the recession, so they announced layoffs, and I'm not gonna lie, I literally raised my hand, and they are like, and like people are scouring. They're like, what am I gonna do? I have a mortgage, I have college tuition, everything else, and I'm sitting there, a 25, 20, probably right around there, age kid that's like, I don't like what I do, and I'm kind of happy actually. So announce layoffs, go to my senior manager who had no idea who I was. It was like a senior manager. He was actually one below our CEO. He was pretty much the top dog in Oppenheimer funds at the time, and I'll never forget it. And I won't say his name. I almost said his name, but he was such a nice guy that he was a brilliant guy. He was just a hard worker. He knew what he wanted to do. He possessed all these qualities that I wanted. This was the thing. I didn't want to take the time because he was in his 50s, like, and I'm 20 something at the time, and I'm like, that is 30 years away. That is 30 years away. Like, that's insane. 30 years away that I'm actually going to wait to to become this person that I want to become. 30 years. I'm like, no way. And he's like not even near the income level that I would expect at a 50 something. Like, yeah, he was making probably, I don't know, four, five, $600,000. However, by that time, for me, to be honest, I want to be making way more than that, like 10x that, if not more, per year, like 10 million, 15 million, like some serious dough. And I'm like, this is not their trajectory. So I walk into his office. Hey, how's it go? And he says, what are you doing here? And I'm like, well, I actually am looking to um, get laid off. I know you had this whole thing. And he goes, yeah, I actually just got the list on who's going to be on the layoff list. And I said, listen, can you put me on that layoff list? And I'll never forget this. He stands up from his desk. He's about 6'4", 6'5". And he closes the door and he's over me. I'm sitting down. He's over me and he goes, what are you going to do, son? And I go, I don't know, but it's not this. And I'll never forget it. He looks through the list. He goes, you're not on it. And he goes, I'll add your name. And he was in shock. And I was elated. I was like, thank God. I'm like, this is awesome. He's going to, I'm going to leave the job that I don't want to be at and everything else. So long story short, they announced layoffs. It's actually really funny because they flew in the CEO. He was out in Denver. They flew in the CEO and they said, here's Bob, and we're in a conference room, and we're at World Two, I think. I think that's where Oppenheimer Funds is, and it was, I think I just said his name, but it was me, this guy, and the CEO. And the CEO has this prepared statement. I'm sorry to tell you, but we have layoffs and blah blah blah, and we're going to give you this amount of money, and they're, just this prepared statement. And I go, yeah, I know. And the person that allowed me to be laid off was right across from me, and he's looking at me like, no, you didn't, you idiot. You're supposed to play dumb. So he's doing the thing like across your neck, like, no, you didn't know. And I'm like, oh, no. And I started like putting on a act that I was surprised and scared and of the future and everything else. But to be honest, I wasn't. So anyway, ended up getting my license, going to a small firm downtown. And, I was doubted, getting into real estate. It's a recession. My brother said, who did you talk to before doing this? No one. I'm the last child, so it's not a big deal. Then after 2 years, I was at a small firm downtown during the recession. It was just a total grind for 2 years. I seriously have no idea how I had held my head above water, and I barely did. It was brutal. And I said, you know what? I need to do sales. I was doing rentals for almost 2 years. I completed five sales, probably, making all right money. I made 38,000 my first year and then 42 my second year. And I said, by the third year, I was like, I wanted to make some serious money. All my friends were starting to make, 80, 90K, some of them well into the six figures, 150, and we're only 27. So I said, income wise, I want to catch up. So I went to this other firm, Halstead Property in New York City, and I hustled my way in there. I went door to door because they all were like, I've never heard of this place that you started at, Platinum Properties downtown, and I don't know who you are. So anyway, long story short, got hired by Halstead Property. Very happy there for a couple of months, even probably a year. Maybe a year and a half. And there's a couple of things that I really noticed in the marketplace. So we didn't have a Trulia or a Zillow. Like, yeah, it was, but it was shit. It was terrible. The UI was brutal. The user interface was brutal. You couldn't really use it. And this was the thing when StreetEasy.com first started making its rounds. I think it started in, I don't know, 2007, 2008, 2000, right around there, but it didn't really catch on and it didn't become really viable until about 2011, 2012. And by that time, I was at Halstead Property, which has 1,000 agents. So in my office, I had 100 agents in my office, and you can get a good vibe on technology when you're surrounded by 100 agents. And I just remember people being freaked out. What am I going to do? Street Easy, and people don't need us anymore. And I'm like, this is a godsend. I'm like, this is amazing. I'm like, this means instead of seeing 50 properties, you could see 10 because you saw the photos, the floor plan, you know the comparables, you know everything about the building. I'm like, this is amazing. Like, this is great. And it was around that time, probably about a year and a half into working at Halstead, that I noticed that the marketplace between the agents was shifting. And it wasn't just at Halstead, it was within the whole, $1 million listing started taking off. So more people were entering and getting their license. And I'm just sitting there just thinking are you kidding me? Like, this is crazy. I'm like, there's 33,000 agents now, or 34,000 agents that are licensed in New York City. And like the 80-20 rule, Pareto's principle, which is 80% of the agents make 20% of the money and 20% of the agents make 80% of the money. Follow that one. And the marketplace is shifting in the way the consumer, where all the information, all the listings, everything's online. You don't have to go through a broker to rent an apartment because about 60% of the rentals are online, or 70%. I don't even know the total percentage, but a lot of the rentals are online. A lot of them are no fee. The owners are putting up their own apartments on Street Easy, and that's really where I started seeing the environment shift in New York City. And that's where I said, I just didn't like it. I didn't like coming in and there was negativity. People would just waste my time talking to me. And I saw this whole thing called social media just start to blow up. And around 2012, keep in mind, listen, now it's just part of way of life. But in 2012, there were still features and mobile friendly and the iPhone, and it wasn't where it is now. However, 2012, I noticed that's where everything was going. Everything was going mobile. Everything was going to be cloud. Everything, printing papers was going to be a thing of the past. E-signatures, like all this jazz, was just a thing of the past. So that was the thing. When I noticed that, that's when one of my friends who started a firm up in Upper Manhattan, he left and he started this firm, and I just remember like envying him. How do you start a firm in how do you like start your own real estate firm? Like I just remember him saying, "Yeah, I'm gonna go start my own firm." I was like, "That's insane. That's crazy to hear, but all right, go do what you need to do." And he went in. He went and did it. And then he calls me about 6 months later, and he says, "Charles, you should do the same." And that's really the idea. He was the one behind it, and I am thankful that he told me to start my own firm. So sure enough, I started doing a lot of research in the 2013 for 8 months. 8 months, I literally was a hobbit, and I was going over the game plan, the website, the .com. What do I need to include? Researching it. I need an LLC, and then there's an assumed name, and then where am I going to get office space? And then I was talking to Rebney, then I had to get licensed as an actual broker, and then I couldn't do anything because I still had deals at Halstead, and it was insane for 8 months. Like, and it was like, where's the money? And you're hosting for your website, and you obviously need a vendor to send your listings out, and photography and videography and floor plans and all that jazz. That was the thing for myself. That's when I just said, this is my focus. This is what I want to do. And I'll never forget it. I'll never forget it. This is actually, I'm just remembering this, and this is maybe why I'm happy to be doing this podcast. Is in at Thanksgiving, 2013, I announced it to my friends and or to my family at Thanksgiving. I said I'm starting my own firm, and everyone bugged because I come from a an Irish Catholic conservative family, and to do anything like that is like what? Like that's not normal. So, but for me, it was because I just wasn't happy. It was the same thing with Oppenheimer funds. I wasn't happy there, so I went out and did all the research. And that's the thing is that people, when they hear an idea, there's the idea, and then there's the idea and the execution. The reason I was able to execute is because of all of the information that I thought of. I did research on. I compiled a ton of stuff. So started Boatenston Properties International, and what I'm going to be doing through this podcast, and that's really the introduction. I and then started Boatenston Properties International in 2014. Got a Class A office building, 1271 Avenue of the Americas, and what I'm going to be talking about in a lot of these episodes and a lot of these podcasts, I just wanted to give an introduction to myself and what I'm going to be talking about is maybe mistakes and foibles that I've done along the way, some business ideas, things that I'm thinking about for agents. What do I think of Street Easy? What do I think of video? What do I think of social media? How can you apply it to your own life? And there's a ton of things that I do that are completely revolutionary, at least in New York City. Like maybe there's a couple firms that are doing it, but the majority of the firms are so 10 years ago, it's frightening. And to be honest, they're going to be wiped out from all this new technology that's going to be entering the marketplace. And if you don't innovate, you're done. If you're not on social media, I know a lot of people are talking about if you're not young and on social media, there's a whole area, there's a whole marketplace that you're not tapping into. There's a whole resource of people and ideas, and it's easy to gain it's easy to spread ideas. Like to gain a following, you need quality stuff consistently over time, providing value, and that's it. Like that's a fact. So if you're not doing that, you're not going to be surviving. So welcome to the first podcast, BPI. If you have any questions, let us know. Hop over to boatenston.com. Follow us on YouTube. Follow us on everything else, pretty much. Whichever social media, honestly, the three major places is going to be obviously the podcast, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. So have an awesome day. Let us know if you have any questions, any ideas, anything that you want to know. And we'll certainly be back next week. This is going to be a weekly thing. And we'll talk to you soon.